What is going on, guys? This is All Gaming with my review of Black Bullet Episode 2. And this episode, it goes to show you that even though this world or series, it has such a threat to deal with, known as the Gastria, you also have to worry about these humans as well. Because we see that even when these cursed children, they are used for protection, it goes to show you that people here can still hate them as well. But the episode, it starts off where we see Rentaro. He's in school, and you can tell that's like early in the morning because he actually gets this phone call. And it seems now that that Kisara, she has now called him in because they have this job to do. And so when they go to this place, we see now that they are surrounded by not only these men in these very fancy suits, but we also see like these other promoters as well, and they all have their partners. Now I get that Rentaro wants Enju to pretend that that she's a regular girl, but when it comes to things like this, I feel like that maybe he can make some excuse for her so that she can leave school and be with them, because it was kind of weird that he was the only one to not have a partner there. But we also saw we also saw like these other promoters, but mainly one of them, and his name was Shogun, and this guy was kind of being a prick. And we see now that he was like messing with Kisara and Rentaro, and because like obviously those two were like definitely the youngest ones there, and so he thought it was just kids acting like they're playing the game. And we see now that the Shogun here, he actually thinks of nothing of the cursed children, but anything like their tools. So that right there, goes to show you, how low people think of these children, because even their own partners might not think that highly of them. And so at one point, when Shogun here, stop calling these children tools, that right there set Rentaro off, because he thought that Shogun here was like calling Enju that, and in a sense he kind of was. So I thought that we might get this fight breaking out, because we see at one point Shogun here actually headbutts Rentaro, and so I thought that we might see fight back and forth for a minute. But we have Shogun's boss here, who was like threatening to fire him if he did not obey, and follow in line. And so we see now that Rentaro here was like looking at his partner. We see that she was like mouthing the words, I'm hungry. So that made me think, if Shogun does not see his partner as nothing more than a tool, then maybe he actually, does mistreat her. And it's possible that because he not consider her, a person, that he might not even feed her. And so, that right there, made me wonder, because if that's the case, then I definitely feel bad for this girl. But we see now that, after everybody was there, we see like somebody who is definitely high on the chain here. He comes in, and we actually learned that, this job right here was of the utmost importance. And he was saying that, if people wanted to decline, then they had one chance to leave, because after he gets started, then they cannot turn down this job no matter what. And it seems that, some company here, some business, I guess you could say, didn't even bother to show up. So that right there was like also interesting, because we seem to have every major organization, and the fact that one thing will show up there, it was definitely kind of weird. But we see that this job here, it was from none other than the ruler of the Tokyo area, and her name is Tenshi. And we see now that her advisor is actually Rentaro adopted father, and it's also Kisara's grandfather. So that right there, was definitely a nice little twist, because I definitely knew that they were like related somehow in the first episode, but I was just not sure how. And so we see now that this job, that they have to go get this case, and they have to go and make sure that it's unharmed. And this case here, I believe they were like stolen by a Gastria, or maybe a Gastria has devoured it. But basically, they just have to get this. And I believe that the reward was like 1,000,000 yen. I'm not really sure, but I believe it was like some crazy high number. And so eventually we have Kisara, who was trying to learn more about what was in this case, but because it was just like so important, they kept shutting her down every time she like tried to learn more. But eventually, we hear somebody laughing, and everybody's trying to figure out, who was doing that, because clearly it's disrespectful. And we see now that it's none other than the antagonist that we saw in the first episode. He's now back, and everybody's, kind of wondering, how in the world did he make it in here? Because normally, that would should be impossible. And we see now that not only, is he there as well, but he also has this cursed child that he claims as his daughter. I believe her name was Hiruko Kohina. That was her name. And this guy's name is Hiruko Kaganita. I believe that was his name. And so now that we learn more about them, this guy actually wants to get this case as well. And we finally learn, what's inside it, and it's called the Inheritance of the 7 Stars. And I believe, after this guy, makes his declaration of getting this, and he leaves, we see now that this inheritance, it has the power to destroy the Tokyo area, because it can actually break those those monoliths that we saw that were actually protecting the city. But this guy here, he's definitely up to no good. And we see now that when Shogun, this guy actually got angry and had went to attack him, but his sword had got reflected off like this invisible barrier. And so now we see, every promoter and even, some of the boss people, they were all pointing guns at, what's the name? I just said it. I forgot it. Here it is. Kagetane. That's it. There we go. People were like pointing their guns at him, and they all fired. And we see now that their bullets, it was not able to penetrate this barrier that he made. And so now we see that this guy, even though he claimed to be human, it's clear that he's not, because he even admitted that he had replaced all of his organs with like these metal instruments, and that is why he was able to make this barrier like this. And so that right there was like definitely, a pretty cool thing, I will admit. Even though this guy is a villain, he's definitely, interesting, because this barrier not only protected him, but his daughters as well. And he also claimed that he's part of like this new human creation plan, and apparently he was like a former guard or something, a part of this special unit that had to deal with like mechanization. So clearly, this guy's character, it is very unique in itself. And not only did he stop those bullets from like hitting him, but he also had shot them back out. And we just saw so many guys got hurt. And now that he's also in this race to get the case, we see now that the princess had added this new rule that everybody must get it before him. And so now that he's gone, we go to the next day, or it could be the same day, I'm not really sure. But we see now that Rentaro, he's back with Enju, and they're all walking together. And we see now that Enju here got like these watches that were like from this show that she loves, because I definitely recall her talking about this with her friend at the end of the first episode. But we see now that these watches here, I believe that they can tell when like you're like lying or something. I'm not really sure. But the importance here is that we saw another cursed child. She was like running away because we saw that she had stole a few things from these people, and when they finally got their hands on her, she was like struggling to get free. And not only that, we have the cops as well. They now showed up, and they were like all manhandling her. And to make things worse, or to make things even sadder for you, we see this girl actually reach out for Enju, and when Enju was like going to take her hand, we have Rentaro stopping her. And so now the girl here, she like carried off in a police car, and we see that Enju is just so worked up, her eyes turn red, and we know that right there is definitely not a good thing. And so now we see that Rentaro, he actually gets worked up thanks to Enju's words, and he eventually gets this guy motorbike, he actually, chased off, or chased after, I should say, the police car. But the thing is, they did not take this girl, to the station. They took her to like this abandoned building. And when Taro had went in there to see what's going on, we see now that, they were like shooting this girl. And that right there, just tore my heart out. Because we see that not only did they shoot her in the back, but they also shot her in the head because they had wanted to kill her, and that right there is just so freaking messed up. But we see now that, after they left, Rentaro went to go check on the girl, and of course he felt so bad, he could not figure out why they were doing this, because these cursed children are there to protect them, and yet they get treated this badly. But luckily, this girl has survived, and Rentaro here took her to a doctor that I'm guessing, like work on cursed children, or maybe he didn't know, but he was definitely surprised to see that she was alive. And Rentaro here was actually gonna pay, for him taking care of her. And the doctor here was like definitely surprised by that, because I'm guessing that, maybe people like definitely don't like cursed children like that, or the bill will be really high because this girl is definitely messed up. But regardless, Rentaro is definitely a real man for doing this. And we see now that when he's like walking along, we have Kagetane. He's not appearing once again, and he has like this certain interest in Rentaro, and I'm just not sure why, because it's definitely weird how interested he is in him. But we see that that the Kagetane, he actually wants Rentaro to be his partner, and he offers him like this suitcase of money. Oh, but before that, we actually have them, standing off with their guns, and we see that that the Kagetane, he actually wants Rentaro to like lower his gun, but of course he refuses that. And of course now we have Kagetane calling his daughter, and she's like walking in with like her eyes glowing red, and clearly, for that creepy factor, because this little girl is definitely a monster. But when she actually goes to attack him, we have Enju. I'm not sure how she knew where Rentaro was, but she comes in, and of course we have what's her name? Oh, Kohina. We have her unable to cut Enju, and so of course now she like feeling upset, and we see that this rivalry is now building up between these two. And it was definitely interesting. After these two had left, we have Enju here kind of like doubting herself as she can take down Kohina. So Kohina. So I'm like definitely looking forward to a real fight between them, because I am curious about that. But Kagetane here, right before he left, he gave this warning to Rentaro to go check Enju's school tomorrow, and we see that when he does, there's a rumor that clearly he has spread out about Enju being a cursed child, and that right there, which is so freaking messed up, because now all of Rentaro planning for this, it had now went down the drain because of this. And when he went home, we see now that Enju was like nowhere to be found, and even though he looked everywhere, he cannot find her. And when I thought that he might have found her in the bath, I was like hoping she would be there, but it turns out that that scene right there was only a flashback. So that right there was kind of like a low blow, because it had got my hopes up, such to like take them away. But we see that he's like traveling looking for them, and eventually he comes across like this sewer crab, I think you could call it, and we see now that there's this cursed child there, and of course he asks her if she's seen Enju, but she hasn't, and so then we learn that they have this elder now, who's actually like just like a regular old guy. He's like taking care of them. And he's also teaching them a lot of things, and one thing he was teaching them was to suppress their emotions, so that way their red eyes wouldn't show. And so now we see that this guy, he had claimed that he did not see Enju, and we see now that he was just telling Rentaro that he could just move on and find another partner, because most promoters actually see the curse children just like tools, and that right there, once again set Rentaro off, and he just snapped, and we actually get this pretty quick flashback of when they first met, and Enju here, she had looked like this savage animal when they first met. And over time now, you could just see, how she became more human and opened up to him. Because even, like, I'm guessing, it was the first day that they had stayed in a home together, we see that Enju did not eat her food. But over time, she had gave in and started eating, and she started to like it. But now, Rentaro here tried to apologize for how he was acting and left. And we actually learned that that Enju, she's definitely there. She is there, and she was like crying. So it is kind of messed up that that the guy lied to Rentaro, because you could just tell how badly he wants to find Enju. So I do wonder what's going to happen here, because we see Enju now kind of in a slump, I guess you can say, and Rentaro is like definitely depressed because he can't find her. But I am wondering, what's going to happen, because clearly Rentaro is definitely going to want to get revenge on Kagetane for what he did, because he basically ruined Enju's life, because she had friends now. She was going to school, and now that right there should definitely gone down the drain. But like I said, this episode, it was definitely good. I do like the dark side of the series, because even though we have this threat out there and these monsters, it goes to show you that these regular people can be just as disgusting. But as always, please let me know what you got about the episode as well, and do not forget to like the video and subscribe, because that really helps me out. But you guys take it easy, and I'm gonna see you all next time.